The main problem with most podcasters is you can't look yourself in the mirror and answer the following question. Are you the number one solution to a real problem in this world?
How long did it take you to make your first dollar with your podcast?
It was about 4 months. I remember somebody that I knew, I'd actually interviewed him, emailed me and said, "Hey, John, I really enjoyed the interview." And I remember the 3 month, I was like, $1,800 for 3 months. He's going to laugh at that. And I sent it to him and he's like replied back like literally instantly and just said, "Hey, I'll take the 3 month package. When can we start?" And I was just like, oh my God, I just made my first dollar of podcasting. It's never too late. What's too late is to create a crappy podcast that's a pale, weak imitation of other podcasts, which is what 95+% of people will do. What will never be too late is to identify a real problem in this world and then create the number one solution to that problem in the form of a podcast. When you do that, you will win.
John Lee Dumas, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. Let's go ahead and start off with just a quick introduction. How'd you get into podcasting and entrepreneurship?
Back in 2012, I was just listening to podcasts, loving podcasts and also audiobooks as well, but those were pretty expensive. And I just fell in love with the free, on-demand, targeted platform that is podcasting. I could press play when I wanted, stop when I wanted. The content was free. It was engaging. It felt pretty intimate. And that's when I said, hey, I want to listen to a podcast that is a daily interview with other entrepreneurs. And when I went to find that show, Mike, didn't exist. So I said, hey, why not be the person that creates the first daily podcast interviewing entrepreneurs? Here you and I are 10 and a half years later, 4,000 episodes later, still cranking away.
Wow. Amazing story. Any shout outs to some early podcasts that maybe you drew some inspiration from, or just podcasts that maybe you like to enjoy listening to?
Andrew Warner of Mixergy was a great podcast that I loved. Pat Flynn's Smart Passive Income. Those would definitely be the top two.
Yeah, some great podcasts there. So how long did it take you to make your first dollar with your podcast?
It was about 4 months. I remember somebody that I knew, I'd actually interviewed him, emailed me and said, "Hey, John, I really enjoyed the interview. I want to start my own podcast based off of that conversation we had because it was a really fun podcast interview and I have some ideas of my own. What are your coaching rates?" And I said, "I'll get right back to you." And I got off the call and I was like, what am I going to do? And I remember creating this like pretty janky PDF with like 1, 2, and 3 month coaching plans. And I remember the 3 month, I was like, $1,800 for 3 months. He's going to laugh at that. And I sent it to him and he's like replied back like literally instantly and just said, "Hey, I'll take the 3 month package. When can we start?" And I was just like, oh my God, I just made my first dollar of podcasting.
Wow. Yeah. Do you think most new entrepreneurs kind of underprice themselves because they're a little scared to kind of get started, to maybe botch that first few customers?
I mean, yes and no, because it's just so dependent on what value that you have to provide. If you're providing really specific, unique value that not many other people can provide, which was me at the time, there just weren't that many people podcasting. So I really did have unique knowledge and a specialized skill set. Then yes, you probably are underpricing yourself. But if you're just a commodity and you're just trying to, get money for doing what a million other people are doing, then it's called the race to the bottom. And I just love that Seth Godin quote of, the problem with the race to the bottom is you just might win. People just undercutting their competitors a little bit all the way down to where nobody's making any money. So I'm always big about really having a specialized, unique skill set and then pricing yourself accordingly.
Awesome. Yeah, that kind of leads us to our next question is the JLD secret sauce that's amassed you a really huge following. What would you sum that up as? What is that secret sauce? What are some of the ingredients in that?
Total transparency. I'm like the only person that I know of still to this day who is doing a monthly income report where I share every dollar that comes in, every dollar that goes out. I have my lawyer come on to share a legal tip. I have my accountant come on to share a tax tip and to validate the report. And it's just something that I think a lot of my audience jives with, because they're like, okay, this guy is showing us his success so that we can emulate it. He's showing us his failures so we can avoid those failures. And he's just being completely open, honest, and transparent with everything within his business, frankly, in an industry that's not known for being that open and transparent.
Yeah, love it. I think, I've seen inspiration for companies that I built. We started doing these kind of open reports, and it kind of also just made us a better business, because it's kind of forcing you to do some of those things that a lot of entrepreneurs kind of put to the side. They outsource it to somebody. So it gets you in there, understanding the numbers, how you're making money, how you're probably losing money, maybe in some cases. So yeah, I love that. Any other secret sauces? I know there's probably a few other ingredients in there.
Definitely consistency. I mean, listen, 4,000 episodes in 10 and a half years. I mean, just committing to delivering on the content that I pledged that I would to my audience. So many people come and go because they just can't remain consistent. So that's definitely another ingredient.
Yeah, I love that. So when would you consider your podcast or your business? When did you look back at yourself and say, "Hey, this is a success. I'm a success"? How did you define success in your journey of podcasting?
It was month 13 of the podcast. I mean, I made very little to no money the first 12 months of the podcast. And then month 13, we had a breakout month. We launched a course. We made over $100,000. I could also see how we could keep doing that and keep having that type of success. And sure enough, for the last 112 months, we have had $100,000 net profit or more month. So we've been able to maintain that consistency. And so I really trace that back to month 13. That was our first breakout month.
Love it. And so what would you recommend for podcasters that are looking to make some extra money? How can they learn from your process? What can they do differently?